this is it. After this, there's no turning back. This is your last chance. Take the blue pill, and you'll wake up in your bed, covered in fast food trash or whatever the hell you do, and believe whatever you want to believe. Or you could take the red pill, and you'll stay in Wonderland, and I'll take you down this rabbit hole as far as you want to go. Oh, you're fucked.
Welcome to Cinema Gulp, I'm John.
And I'm Ben, and today we're talking about the entire, up-to-date Matrix franchise.
Bryan and Jamie.
So we're talking about the 1999 March release of the phenomenon, which was Matrix 1 first. So initial thoughts, guys. We just finished watching it. What a movie.
One of my
What
favorites.
a fucking movie, right?
It's a revolutionary movie. One of the best movies I watched when I was, in my 20s. Sort of changed cinema forever.
It did. A lot of people say it's the best movie in '99. That's debatable, obviously, based on your taste. But
I agree, it's very revolutionary for its time. Kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know if you guys remember the Super Bowl spot. That was kind of where a lot of people first heard about this movie.
The Morpheus voiceover, right? Just a lot of people want to know what the Matrix is.
Yes, and it was just asking the question, what is the Matrix? And it
Yeah.
really intrigued cinema goers, moviegoers. I don't know what opening box office was for this movie. I think it still took a little time to build its audience.
And it was R-rated, yeah.
And it was R-rated, so it didn't have the kind of numbers that the PG-13 films at the time had and stuff like that. But just like everyone else, it was like, what is this? I got to know more about this. And once you got, I think we were all saying while watching it again, that first 5-minute opening scene, action scene, once that was done, you were just like, oh my God, I am in for a ride. This is something I've never seen before.
It fucking has you, because you have no idea what's going on, but what you're watching, you can't take your eyes off it. And you've never seen anything like that before.
I remember watching hacker movies, like computer hacker type stuff.
Hackers? The Net?
I can't watch Hackers.
And I think a lot of people didn't go to the movies to see The Matrix because it was like, another one of these movies. And this was next level.
I want to say what could have worked slightly against this movie was Keanu Reeves' action star was fading. So even though this was, his greatest action movie to some degree, I think people were thinking, oh, it's another one of his kind of crappy late 90s action movies, sci-fi movies. Oh my God, is this Johnny Mnemonic 2?
It had so many implements in all the movies that I've seen. Like where they're all parkouring and doing all that kind of
They even named a movie The One. With like Jet Li, like just saying we're stealing your movie.
The influence since then has been unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, even a couple years later, like things like Shrek had like the rotating jump kick.
Yeah.
It became such a piece of pop culture.
It's iconic.
Scary movie, even a year later, utilized like the freeze frame.
Yeah.
Phantom Menace came out and everyone expected, oh my God, Phantom Menace, Star Wars movies are back in the theater. And Matrix turned out to be the big hit of the year. Like, not money-wise, I think Phantom Menace made more, but it was the one people remembered, talked about, influenced cinema for years to come, had the revolutionary special effects you thought Star Wars would have brought to the table.
Yeah.
Excellent! It actually ended up being in the perfect spot because when you had that Phantom Menace disappointment era, you had people still just jaw-dropped from The Matrix because they didn't know what it was and it came out of nowhere.
I feel like this movie doesn't feel small, even though it's the smallest of the three films. It's not as ambitious as the later two films and as much spectacle on display, but it never feels small. It's got some really big, amazing action scenes in the movie, but they hid those in a lot of the marketing, which you would think, oh my God, that's like foolish to not give people what they want to go see in the theater. But you had to wait till you saw it in the theater, and then you were really wowed by it because it wasn't spoiled.
Yeah, you weren't disappointed.
Nowadays, the preview would start off with Neo flying up like Superman.
By far my favorite of the three. I know that there's eventually going to be a fourth, but right now, what we have, it's not even close. I mean, they're not even close second and third. The practical effects and the way the camera's used, like there's so much amazing.
When they're falling down the wall, between the walls.
And those are just simple techniques too. Like there's so many tricks that they use.
They're all in there, and then they all falling down, holding on to each other, and pulling them down.
And you wonder, like, yes, technically there was digital video, but it wasn't really being utilized yet, especially for movies of this scale. This was shot on anamorphic Super 35mm. That's expensive as fuck, that's super expensive film. And when you look at that scene in the building where they're just shooting
The
cops,
lobby scene.
The lobby scene.
Oh, amazing.
How many takes did that take?
He just takes the bag. There you go. Right through the security.
How's it going, Royal Ugly Dudes?
Yeah.
But imagine how many takes of like the stunt team had to do that scene over and over on expensive film, you know?
All of the practical stunts are in the movie. It's all very innovative, all the wire work and stuff.
So
And
much
I know
wire work.
That was something being utilized in a lot of Asian cinema or
Yeah.
reinvigorating cinema in 1999 because, as you all said, the influence from this movie beyond that. Every movie wanted to have wire work action scenes. This movie did the right thing of finding a way to make it organic for the script, that all this gravity-defying effects and stuff that you see fits into the storytelling, manipulating the Matrix and being able to do things that can't happen in the real world. But the wire work feels a little...
Whoa, Jesus Christ.
I told you he's gonna.
Wait,
Hi,
it's
Whiskey.
a cat. What'd they say about cats in the Matrix?
Deja vu.
That's
Go
deja
twice.
vu.
There we go.
Dude, deja vu.
I told you he's gonna do this.
Deja vu.
No way! The respect I have for this movie is, you could call me stupid. I think it's
I do
up there
too.
with some of the best movies ever made when it comes to just how this movie was made. You may go, what, The Matrix? And I know we're not talking about the sequels yet, but that's another thing I hate about them is they abandon the wire work and it's all CGI mess after mess, and the characters look fake and they look like Stretch Armstrong and Gumby.
This movie you can watch 100,000 times.
Oh God, yeah.
Very
You
rewatchable.
can put it on at any moment.
It's popcorn movie.
And you're
like-
not bored.
Yeah, you could start it from any point of the movie and you'd be like, I'll go on this ride.
Ooh,
I
yes.
don't care.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I love it.
I think we pointed out a couple like, oh, that didn't age well moments,
But very few.
but very few.
Yeah.
Yeah, only
It
his
holds up really
Only
well.
a couple
cartwheel.
chuckles.
His cartwheel was okay.
Yeah.
I like the cartwheel. Actually.
Talk about the
Hey,
cartwheel.
Keanu Reeves, if you watch this, your one-armed cartwheel was legit.
No, I think when you become this carved out piece of pop culture that influenced so many things, it's impossible to not date a little bit because that's the point. It's that product of right when it was, and it moved things forward. So
Yeah.
it's stuck where it is,
Yes.
but everything else has kind of just grown from it, you know?
You know,
So
I think that lobby scene, I think all the John Wick
my
movies
favorite.
have copied that lobby scene.
lots of movies have copied
Because that lobby scene is the entire John Wick franchise. Every single scene is the lobby scene.
This movie has a great story. It's an innovative story. It's an interesting story. It's got wonderful reveals and twists and turns. That's part of the strongest point. I mean, the technical filmmaking, as you said, how it innovated and just showed people things we had never seen before. But working. Okay.
Hey.
Now we really got deja vu going on.
Is this deja vu?
Whoa.
Thought I just saw that cat twice.
Wait, tell
Yep,
me.
you had the
I
one.
thought it was a black cat.
Well, there's the Easter eggs in the movie where
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
where
yeah.
there's when you see the city streets and people walking by, there's tons and tons of twins. The Wachowski brothers, they hired lots of twins, make it feel like
I'm
an
not
unreal
doing a
world.
review of twins, man. Come on.
Were they identical?
I don't know. No.
Arnold and
All right.
1984, when his actual apartment was room 101.
I love that they're smart, but then they can make a movie where people can judge it on it trying to be smart, but not being as smart as you think it is. But then they're really sitting back laughing, going, oh, it's as smart as we want it to be. You guys can put it on whatever pedestal you want, but we know exactly the film that we made. People hated the Blu-ray restoration because they took the first movie, the good one, that has beautiful detailed highlights, really nice poppy deep blacks. And that movie really shines and looks gorgeous. What they decided to do, let's take one, the beautiful looking one, and make it look more consistent with the other two. Maybe it was just easier to lay a green mask over one, but it was fucking distracting.
Yeah,
man.
that's what John said.
We couldn't stop talking about it.
Yeah, it looks terrible.
We were probably driving you guys nuts because we just could not stop talking
we-
about it.
And
the teeth, the mustaches, the
The
green
sweat.
mustache.
yeah, I mean, you
You
had
can see
moments
fingerprints
where,
on phone booths that were green.
Neo looked like he was turning into the Hulk because you have these green hues running across his face that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
The original cut of the movie, the cinematographer used so much like butterfly lighting from sunlight. There's so much angled lighting that when you mask it all in green, it's just this big green glob on the side of this. How did the people that signed off on this Blu-ray, watched this in a screening room.
Good job.
And signed off on that, dude.
Well, I think they had just reviewed Flubber just before that.
No,
and
I've
so
seen
they,
Slimer.
Or the Hulk.
From,
Yeah. So if you want to see how terrible the green looks, just take a look at this shot right here.
Excellent!
That's something that I know this film has some CGI, but none of it stands out. There's very little. It's all the great wire work and real physical action scenes.
CGI is so sparingly used. That's the perfect way to use it.
Yeah.
Just
Only when it's
Neo
really,
puts
really impossible.
Neo puts his finger bangs
yeah,
the
in the
mirror.
mirror.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
It's close up. It's
just,
dark.
like,
It's like
globby.
That's
you know?
something I wanted to point on. I love all the reflections in this movie.
Yeah.
All whether it's through people's glasses, on doorknobs, the spoon itself, just all these different moments. with
Oh,
these
the spoon moment.
Great close-ups that show you, these
Yeah.
beautiful reflections
And all those things, all those reflections on glasses and door, it's all adds to that surreal
And the
nature. It's like a
telephone.
music video.
Yeah.
You know,
You know,
We have to give a shout out to the Oracle.
dude, I love that woman.
She's
I
the best.
want
I
her
just
to
want some
tell me
cookies.
bedtime
Want
stories
something.
every night for the rest of my
Yeah,
life.
make us some cookies and smoke her cigarettes and tell bedtime stories.
Take a cookie.
Actually, I don't want her cookies. That crunch.
No,
that
at the
cookie
end.
was burnt.
Those bad sound.
He bit down way too hard.
Truth on that. Coming off the heels of just the first film, it really was Star Wars for a new generation. Star Wars is the hero's journey. The young boy goes on the hero's quest journey, but just updating it in such an amazing way. And then the stories got so convoluted that it's like, who cares if it becomes a sprawling universe
Yeah.
like the Star Wars? I love the transitions between the Matrix and the real world, I guess is reality.
Yeah.
They're always so creative.
Yeah.
Every time that people are getting on phones, or those moments that, especially in the beginning, when
Yes, real phones.
Trinity gets on the
Yeah.
phone. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
always.
Remember the
in
real
in
phone?
this day and
And a
age,
phone booth.
Even in '99, it was a
Yes,
little bit of a
phone
weird
booth.
thing to figure out, like, why is the rotary phone the link, the technology link to get
Yeah.
them back to the real world?
Right.
Like, it was always a little weird, but you just kind of went with it.
because it was a line,
But
a landline.
I just loved the techniques they use all throughout the film to do those creative transitions.
When Neo takes the pill and he's getting kind of the Matrix is kind of falling apart and it's turning into this it's visually trying to tell us, like, we get it, this script is complicated, this part's going to be kind of hard to understand right off the bat, you don't get lost. But that's such a great visual, like, representation. This world is fake and it's disappearing, and he's going to wake up in the new one, so how can we show that?
And even the
And then
digital
he's
sound
reborn.
effect in that moment.
I love
The
that,
way
yeah.
it gets all digital as it
Yeah.
goes down his throat is
Yeah,
just
it's,
great.
it sounds like a modem. The secret bad guy.
Joe Penn.
Cypher.
Cypher.
Great.
Yeah.
Really good.
I think all the side characters that get an opportunity are great.
Yeah.
The guy,
Really
the
good.
operator, Tank, or
Tank
whatever,
is
we all said
Tank
he's very
steals every scene he's in. He's fantastic.
Fantastic.
Hurry's a pain in the ass on set, which
That's
is
what
why
I was
we
just
get
gonna say.
Link.
But Agent Smith, we haven't really
Oh,
talked
God.
about him. I mean, what an amazing casting of the way he delivers his lines makes everything he does so memorable in that
Yeah,
movie.
He's
yeah.
so
He acts with the way he like pronunciates and stuff. Like
it's so slow
everything
and-
is like
Christopher
we
Walken.
said.
Like
we
molasses
compared
out of
it
your
to
mouth.
like Alan Rickman, where Alan Rickman looks at a blank script that
Yes.
has nothing interesting on that page, and he just
The way-
completely changes it.
Yes.
I think you really do learn a lot about him in that first film.
I hate Cypher by the end. I really
Well,
hate him.
yeah,
I
he's a
actually,
douche.
I actually sympathize with Cypher. That's interesting. that you
Well,
said
yeah.
that.
No, but he is.
When he
what
says
does to
all
his
when he
friends.
says all I do is what he tells me to do, I'm like, I
That's
completely
true.
see his point.
And
That's
you
true,
eat
but what he
maggots or
does to
whatever,
his
you're
friends
eating
that
this-
are all in the same boat,
Yeah.
it really sucks what he did.
He manipulated him to take this pill, and now he's just his little bitch, and he's just like, you do what I tell you on my ship. I'm like, no, that's not what I signed up for, dude. You said you were gonna free my mind. You didn't say I was gonna be a fucking
Deckhand.
bosun's mate, on
But
your
then,
ship.
But then it was his choice to
Cleaning
do
the
what
toilet.
he did to all his
yeah,
friends.
because he didn't want to live that way, and
Yeah,
everybody.
But you don't choose that for somebody else.
Sure you do. Fuck them. One of the best science fiction action movies ever made. I know that sounds like a specific genre, but it really is, and it's a big genre. And this movie helped those become bankable, and sometimes things flail a little bit and they don't get as bankable for a while. But this first movie is a standalone movie. I'm not going to say it's perfect because it's not. Perfect movies, I don't know if they exist, but like, it's a fantastic movie. I love the cast. God, I love the filmmaking. I love the storytelling. Everything in this movie works for me.
Just watching it again, it was like it's still very exciting. I think
It is.
21
Super
years
exciting.
later. I'm excited to show this to anyone who's never got that opportunity. A younger generation. Yeah. This is the kind of film that I still think bridges that gap where we're starting to get far enough beyond a Star Wars. I don't know what it's like to show a kid Star Wars these days, if they could really get as excited as even if they sat down and watched Rise of Skywalker, some piece of shit, they might think that's more exciting because it's flashier, it's more updated. I think this is still that film that could bridge that gap. That it's like, no matter what generation you're from, if you're a little too young into the new shit, the special effects and the overblown film, you could enjoy The Matrix.
Our 9-year-old, he's like, what is that thing that he's doing that with his ear?
The phone.
The phone.
Oh, yeah.
Phone.
Maybe your 9-year-old should go to school and
they don't know
learn
phones
a few
anymore.
things.
There's no
Go to school. There is no school.
There's no chapter on phone booths in the history book.
The phone booths are done.
Dude, phone booths are making a comeback, man. COVID has got people wanting to share phone booths.
Who wants to get started on ripping apart The Matrix Reloaded?
Matrix rear-ended.
No, I think if you watch it from 70 minutes in.
So the first hour is what you're saying could be edited out of the movie.
Edited out of the
Because it
movie.
doesn't have any storytelling in it, really.
That's not a good movie.
But after that, it gets pretty good. I actually like the movie from that point. From when they get in the elevator to go see the Merovingian, it becomes good.
I thought we were watching a whole different series.
You got to remember, like, this movie came out 4 summers after the first one. That's kind of a long time. They don't do that nowadays. If a movie blows up, they give them 2 years. So a sequel can either be something completely different, continue the story, continue the characters, or start something from scratch. This movie, John said it, squandered every great idea. It didn't not use any of those ideas. To me, it used them all wrong.
I think this film squanders its own ideas that it has set up. Some of the stuff that Bryan and I find interesting from maybe the first half are clues to where the story could have gone in the third film that we, we'll discuss the third film until after watching it.
And listening to you guys talk about listening to all of us talk about what this could have been at almost every turn in this movie made for a way better movie.
Instead of just ending the first one and then immediately starting the second one with him going to meet these crazy Zion people instead of just throwing us into Orgy Fest, crazy techno land.
It's a rave.
Rave land, underground, like using the lava to give you energy and...
What?
I don't remember that scene.
And can we all agree that Zion didn't live up to the little brief mentions they make of it? They make it just sound extraordinary, and then it's just a bunch of bums living in a sewer.
Mm-hmm.
Zion is a little more realized in the third film. You see more of it on display to some degree, but yeah, in this film it's more about the people. Like Zion itself is kind of kept small visually, but you meet a lot of the people there, but they're so uninteresting. They're not integral to this plot other than just being a plot device of, not even really in this film. It's not till the third film that they're truly in the danger that they're there for.
Yeah. I'd be hard-pressed finding a movie that introduced characters in a worse way. This movie just throws characters at you, and they're very important to whatever is supposed to be happening. And you don't know who they are, and they will cut back to them, and we're supposed to know what that story thread is. Yeah. And we don't know who they are. And we're like, oh yeah, there's the Obama guy again. Like, and there's a little kid.
Wait,
who the fuck are they?
You didn't study up on the Animatrix before
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, that's right. We were supposed to have read the books, read the comics, and watched the Animatrix series in order to be able to understand what's happening.
There should never be a movie ever made again where you have to watch 10, 20, 30 hours.
Unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot of them.
Before watching the movie to make sense of it. That's not good.
I remember watching Lethal Weapon 2 and going, I don't understand what's going on. Someone's like, well, did you read the comic in between the first and second movie?
Any movie should just be a self-contained adventure.
Yeah, it seemed like, you were stressing that point that this one should have been another self-contained adventure, and then the third film really just focused on all the Zion stuff, that we didn't even need to go to Zion this time, or if we did, it should have been like any typical movie does, where you have a character within the film that is seeing this for the first time, and so that you're in their shoes, being introduced to all these new things.
See their reaction.
And that's not the way they did it. Neo had already been there, so all these times where he's showing up or they're showing back up and they're being introduced to all these characters.
Be excellent to each other.
It's not a first-time thing, and it just doesn't feel like there's no real wonderment, wow, and excitement in those scenes.
No way!
We're not following a character in this movie. The characters are spread out all over the place. Neo's hardly the main guy. He's not in it for lots of... he's the catalyst in the first movie. How great would it have been if the crowd, the audience, saw Zion for the first time when he did? Instead, it's underwhelming because he's just like, well, I'm back again. I'm going to go to my quarters.
He's just flying around.
And we never really get a good layout.
Let me give you my autograph.
And John, you're right.
Later, I want to get laid.
And you're right. It's like they explore more Zion in the third one, but shouldn't you know if you're world building in the second one, let's see the architecture. I mean, there's a little bit of that, but let's see how it's spread out. And do we have to learn it from a strange old man who we meet for one scene to tell us how?
Most outstanding, Rufus.
You remember when a side character in Empire Strikes Back, Lando Calrissian, was introduced?
Never heard of him.
He was built up, he was talked about, and he was given a grand entrance. And that's really all you needed to know. And his actions from that point, that's how you introduce a character that's important to your
And he's really
narrative.
like a third act character or
Exactly.
midpoint character that he's
You can't just...
At last, Neo is the one himself, right?
That stuff is good. There's stuff to like about this movie, and it really has to do with those characters and the ghost goblin people.
And that goes to the point that I have about this movie, where walking out of this movie back in 2003, I guess that's when this came out, I remember 2003 they released both Matrix 2 and 3. 2 came out in the summer, 3 you had to wait till November.
Yeah.
So that period between the summer and November, I was actually kind of on a high of like, man, Matrix 2 set up some interesting threads that I can't wait to see play out in part 3. One of those really interesting threads was the ghost characters, vampires, and werewolves are mentioned in the second film as being anomalies, programs that aren't doing what they're supposed to do, rogue programs within the Matrix. How interesting is that? They even mentioned aliens, UFOs, like any of these ideas could have played out in the third film and what I was really excited about was the way the action scenes of the Matrix, these karate fights that are choreographed in amazing detail and just awesome like you'd never seen up to that point. Now you add werewolves and vampires into that? I was so freaking excited.
Could've been
Where
amazing.
was any of that? None of that actually happened.
There was some good parts. Fantastic, wonderful fight scenes in the freeway.
Yeah,
25 minutes, 30 minutes of just...
That's an
Unbelievable.
astonishing technical achievement. Like, from what I've read about how they shot that whole thing is crazy.
And I want to say at that time, not like anyone's keeping track, but at that time it was like considered one of the longest like action scenes. Like it really does take up that 25-30 minute chunk of the film of just
But it was
nonstop
amazing.
action. And you didn't really have that in too many movies at that point. Now you kind of get it with every finale of a comic book movie.
Well,
But-
and they still had a lot of traditional cutting and stuff in that freeway scene because they had to. Like, now they would be like, oh, let's do it in one take or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
But it's one of that scene, Brian, I agree, that's my favorite scene of the movie, the freeway scene.
Dang.
That's the first scene where there's danger and there's stakes and there's intensity.
Yes.
And the movie you're worried about Morpheus. He's on the top of this truck fighting a fucking...
With the Keymaster.
He's got to protect the Keymaster, and then you have Trinity on the bike, and it's exciting.
Yes.
And she's my favorite character in all these movies. She finally has something to do.
And you got the twins, and they're battling in the car.
And the twins are hot on their ass.
In the car. And then the twins get pissed off because they couldn't kill him. Like,
And so we all
annoyed.
agree.
Me too.
We all agree one of the best or the best scene in the movie. And what's missing in that scene, Ben?
Neo.
Party on, dudes!
Because if he was there would be no stakes because he's too fucking powerful.
Yeah.
The scene before that scene is just another
A scene I really like,
repetitive,
beautifully choreographed action
I
scene.
agree,
But it
but-
has no stakes.
Yeah, we're not understanding why he's staying in this room fighting these people. One simple cut of Trinity and Morpheus running away from the Keymaster would tell us, oh, he's holding these guys off so they can get as far away as possible. They could tell us that, but we need to see that in the cuttings for us to care about that fight.
And choreography is really good. It looked like a dance.
It
Yeah.
did.
It was.
did.
They were all the.
But personally,
the
I like
flying all
grittier
over the
fights.
place.
That's why I don't like the prequel lightsaber battles, even though people say they're amazing, because there's no emotion to them. They're all choreographed scenes where just somebody just trying to cut someone's hand off with a lightsaber and screaming, to me, is way more intense.
Way more intense.
No,
way
this
more
was just
exciting.
dancing.
Instead of like a dance, yeah.
There always needs to be something at stake. There needs to be emotion.
Like Back to the Future did it somehow. But most of these trilogies, like the Pirates movies, that the first one makes mega bucks unexpectedly, so then they're like, well, now we have all the money, so let's do 2 and 3 together. And 2 and 3 feel like a separate entity to the first one. The first one is self-contained. 2 and 3 are this story thread that only exists in those 2 movies. So the second movie is never going to have a conclusive ending because 3 is only 4 months away, you know?
Yeah.
The
We're
way
not
it
there
ends, Neo, he stops the robots with his hand in the real world, which means either he was like actually like a Jesus,
He's a
Messiah,
robot
real
god.
world.
or he is still in the Matrix, and he's one of the only ones that understands that he's still in the next level of the Matrix, and he could
Even
stop.
though in the real world.
Would that mean that Morpheus was also a program written in every time to
Possibly.
do this, to find the one every
Like
time?
the Oracle.
Possibly. And Morpheus means Morpheus in Greek mythology. He's a god of dreams.
Nebuchadnezzar was a king from the Bible that had leaded somebody, like you're saying,
Leaded
that-
people
to
captivity.
Yeah,
to captivity.
Yeah.
So if you look at it that way, Morpheus piloting the ship Nebuchadnezzar, who's
Wow.
actually a villain, who is supposedly freeing people, but he's actually leading them to the next level of captivity.
Right.
Because they are somebody who questions the Matrix when they're in it. Like Neo was already questioning the Matrix.
Yeah.
Along with
He knew something was
Spoon
off,
Boy
yeah.
and whoever else who's going to eventually be freed, Cypher, all these people questioned the Matrix when they were in it. So if we're understanding some of this jargon said at the end of the movie by the architect,
I'm here to help you with your history report.
those people are the anomalies that if they're unchecked within the Matrix, they would cause a failure. So they have to be removed from the Matrix.
And then-
so a person like Morpheus, who is a program, is that thing that is
Taking him out.
Wow, this
putting
is such
them
a
into-
cooler movie.
And then
Well,
a
that- but they had the opportunity in 2, they had it set up with a number of conversations, and they squandered it. And that final shot, the final moment of, not final shot, but the final moment of Neo using powers in what we believe to be the real world, I always walked out of the theater going, oh, confirmed. The Zion is another level of the Matrix. And you start film 3 and none of that happens. The one reason why in Matrix Reloaded, the choice Neo makes at the end with the architect to save Trinity and not save Zion is a new choice he hadn't made the 5 other times. My only take on that is Trinity did not exist in the 5 other iterations. This is the first time he had a love. He had this person that he chose over the choice of Zion.
But if you think about her character, hi everybody, this is our take on what we think should be Matrix Reloaded, not what we think about, not what we think about
It's
the movie
more
itself.
interesting than the movie we watched.
No, it is. But if you say that, then to me it always seemed like she was definitely something that happened over and over again because she was just like programmed to be in love with him from the very beginning every time. Like
Because the Oracle said that she was going to fall in love with him.
So
exactly,
it
but
was
that's
already predestined.
there you go. So then she would have to be implanted as something because she would do that every time, right? Like,
Right.
or why would she?
And
feel
it's
that
kind of
way?
like the bunch of background movies when he's talking with the guy, and it shows all his different reactions.
Those
to-
were all
to
outtakes
scene.
from Bill and Ted's.
It's totally true. Like,
69, dude! It's not just a water sport.
This movie is structurally terrible, and it's
Gotta agree with
really
And
this-
structurally.
the way. What I say,
agree.
structural.
Structurally.
Cheers!
You see, Matrix Reloaded drove me to drink. The Neo fighting all of the Smiths is laughably stupid.
You were
And
snoring.
It was so stupid. It's just so dumb, and it goes on for so long
Yeah,
for
no,
no
And
I
you
reason.
kept saying, why doesn't he just fly away?
Yeah, and I've heard people
Took
say that
for
before. It's
him
just like, just
forever
fly
to
away.
fly away.
He was working out.
Ben, you made the point that the Wachowskis have always made ambitious films. Every film that they made was an ambitious attempt. they were trying to step up the effects level and the almost just the action. When they stepped up the action, they stepped it up just in terms of it just being overblown and too long.
What can we do? Whether or not the audience cares, but what can we do?
It's like, and they took every idea they had for an action scene and crammed it all in and did it all. It's like, okay, there needs to be a little editing within these action scenes. Okay, yes, he can do handstands and somersaults on his fingertips or whatever, but it just goes on for too long. You said this was the Wolf of Wall Street of Matrix movies because it's just excess.
You're welcome.
At its extreme, and it has these storylines that seem like they're going somewhere and they never do, and so it's really infuriating to watch.
Matrix Revolutions. Jamie, what was this movie about?
I have no fucking clue.
No. The movie we watched. What happens in the third Matrix movie?
I know that Brian has just got those fan theories coming out his ears.
The movie itself on screen was not about really anything, but there's a lot of things it could have been about.
It just disregards every heady idea and every philosophical discussion that those movies were meant to like bring up, and just says, let's shoot CGI flying robots with CGI mech suits. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Hey, someone was paying attention.
Let's make the best ultimate story, and let's just ruin it with lots of robots with spaghetti arms blowing up.
But Jamie goes, I just remember a couple hours ago the first one, and now what is happening? It just goes so off the fucking rails.
I mean, Neo is doing this and all this.
Sphere world thing, and then there's like a bunch of bullets shooting, and then there's little particles.
You mean Zion?
Yeah, Zion is this sphere world underground, and then there's like a hole, and there's robots going through, and then there's just bullets shooting, and there's particles flying down from robots. And that's cool for like...
That's for a Michael Bay movie. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, that's great for like 30 seconds, 40 seconds, but I swear, if you go back and you record how long that is happening,
it's like the whole fucking movie.
It's like 7 minutes of... That's boring. I don't want to sit there and watch particles flying from the top of the ceiling of Zion for 3 hours.
The alien spiral or whatever.
Weren't those
robot
the Sentinels, weren't they
stuff.
so much more terrifying when there was 2 of them attaching to the Nebuchadnezzar than 8 billion of them forming a baby face?
Bird flock. That's what it was like. And then there's like
pretty much,
the sparrows.
And you're like, yes, they killed them all. And then, now there's another billion of them.
They have no other EMPs in this giant facility. Like, there's so many things that don't make sense.
No, nothing makes sense.
You know, they should have been one cohesive story. I don't get how they are so wildly different, and everything that's set up in 2 goes nowhere in 3. It just... What the hell was anybody thinking when they sat down at their computer and wrote this thing?
And Morpheus is like out of the picture. So is Neo
Nothing
most
to do.
of the time.
All the 3 main cast members. It's so right. Like Morpheus is gone, Neo's gone, Trinity's gone.
They were written out. They were written out of the movie. Morpheus, you're written out. You're out of this fucking movie. Whoever can write something about shooting shit in the sky.
They give you like those kind of ceiling crawling quote unquote vampires. That battle harkens back to the first movie a little bit with them hiding
there's some
behind
fun
thing.
with the Merovingian in the beginning.
And Trinity's like desire, like her just will and drive to get Neo back at all costs. I love her like just
that was
love.
just little snippets.
No, I know, but that's what we're saying. We're just there's only good snippets of this movie.
You're right. I'm sick of this shit.
She said, "I'll free us, Neo, now, or we all die right here, right now." I'm like, that's a chick. That's Trinity, right?
That was how we felt with the whole movie, actually.
I think what we want to see is what they were setting up in part 2.
Yeah.
That there was another layer to, another level of control. Now that we've already seen Zion play out, we don't want it to be that. I mean, the only explanation to make it all make sense is Zion was another level of control. But let's see now if there's a 4th film, that's what we're on to. then what is that next level, or what are 6 levels up to the top level? Like, pull us all the way out of whatever levels there are, because in this theory, there's more than one level of the Matrix. So take us all the way out of it. But it still feels like you would just be retreading and telling the same story of this person who had to be pulled out of the Matrix. It doesn't matter if it's 1 level or 6. They're pulled out of this alternate reality and have to live in the real world or fight for the rights of the real world.
Dude, cheers. Oh, shit.
I'm gonna fuck your glass.
Lordy.
Fuck your glass, Lordy.
The Matrix, 1999, filled with amazing soundtrack, amazing visuals, great script, great stunts. That movie will forever, to me, be maybe one of the best movies of our lifetime.
Ever.
I don't care about the sequels because you still always have that one. You can do that with any franchise. You can always just imagine that the one is all that matters. Mm-hmm. The one.
Mm-hmm. The original idea of the movie, The Matrix, was so revolutionary. It was so great about an alternate reality that we're all plugged into something different, and this isn't real. The lives that we're in right now are not real. Mm-hmm. There's something that's
the first movie made you think, but you could actually follow along with what it was trying to tell you.
Whereas it's just such a big idea, and then
and super timely too at the beginning of the internet.
But nothing new came from part 2 and 3. It wasn't like, oh, there's like ghost programs.
But do you agree that it wasn't smooth traveling? Like, to here, and then it kind of picks up a little from behind, and then
the second and third movies,
and then
they were not good. The second and third movies were not.
They're not good as movies, as standalone movies. Especially if you had not. Imagine if you had never seen Matrix 1 and you just sat through 2 or 3. If you just sat through 3.
If you sat down and started watching 2, you would be so bored.
And 3.
And 3 by itself. The stuff that we find interesting that we wish they had expanded on and done more is those ideas. But really, they just went back, especially in part 3. Let's just fill it with a lot of action. Not even the action you really signed up for, the Matrix style that kind of was groundbreaking.
There's no Matrix.
This war movie, this digital CGI war movie. So 3 really fails on just continuing even some of the interesting, heady ideas, even if they weren't the direction we all wanted them to go. Yeah. They threw it out the window.
So first one is still my favorite. And you don't need to see 2 or 3.
I would say the first one on its own is such a great movie. 2 and 3, just fight through them.
That's a horrible endorsement for a movie. Just fight through it.
The original is the only one that is really that rewatchable. I hadn't watched 2 and 3 in a long time, maybe since way back close to when they were out in the theater, and this viewing, much like when we did our last Star Wars marathon viewing, was the last time I would sit through the prequels, and probably the last time I will sit through 2 and 3, because it really does show you, as someone who's seen them a few times, someone who's taken them in, someone who sat here to do a review on them now at this point, there's nothing else I'm going to get out of them. I guess if Matrix 4 did something that made it seem like revisiting those would be interesting, but I'm not really feeling like that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a retread, a reboot, as we thought it should be called. Matrix 4,
reboot.
The reboot.
It has to happen.
Such a classic, it's grown into, it's officially 21 years, so 20 years, I believe, makes it a classic officially. It
and wide open for a remake.
But in 2023, I will not be claiming that Matrix 2 or 3 deserve to be called classics.
Yeah.
Please click like, subscribe, tell your friends. John, where can they find Cinema Gulp?
You can look for us under Facebook, Cinema Gulp. Wait. I don't know. What are the
Twitter and
things
Instagram?
Yeah!
Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Dude, you've done this a million times.
Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And for Cinema Gulp, I am Ben.
Jamie.
Bryan.
John.
And what do we do, guys? We drink your cinema.